guess you're gonna have to tell s.h.i.e.L.D. to shovel it up their collective end zones. They put me out to pasture 5 years ago. But didn't they brief you on that particular piece of intel?
So these orders come from the President himself?
President?
Yes, sir.
Answer's the same. Now, why don't you take your blow dryer and get the hell out of my afternoon sun?
Always a pleasure to see the old warhorse chewing out the troops.
So they sent you too. Contessa Valentino de Allegra Fontaine. Quite a mouthful when you try and wrap your tongue around it. But don't let the blue blood fool you, Pierce. Val's an old hand at the sexpionage game, aren't you?
It's been a long time, Nick.
You don't look any worse for wear.
We need you back.
Maybe I've gotten used to the wilderness.
And maybe you're full of it. Hydra's back in the game.
Ah, that's impossible. Von Strucker's dead. I killed him myself.
Yesterday, Hydra stormed Trinity Base. They stole Von Strucker's body. And they killed Clay in the process.
Damn.
I'm sorry about Clay, Nick, but it looks like Hydra's trying to send you a message.
Looks like I heard it.
Welcome to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. I'm one of your furious co-hosts, Perry Constantine.
And I am the other furious co-host, Derek Ferguson.
How you doing today, buddy?
I am doing quite well despite the weather. It's been raining for like 2 straight days over here in Brooklyn, New York. But on the other hand, the weather's been like in the 50s. So it kind of balances out as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, the weather's been pretty... It's gotten a little chilly over here, but in the afternoon, it's still been warming up quite a bit. Like, I almost took my jacket off when I was leaving work yesterday.
Oh, okay. But you guys don't... Wait a minute. Is it winter over there?
Yeah. We're in the same part of the world as same hemisphere as you are. So
right.
It's Australia is where it's summer now.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So like the southern hemisphere is where they got the season switched.
Okay. Okay. You can see geography is not my strong suit.
Well, even still, like when I first heard, I didn't even know about that until after I moved here, and then a buddy of mine who was also living here was from Australia, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm going home for Australia. I'm going to enjoy the warm weather there. I'm like, oh, is it warm in Australia year round? He's like, no, it's summer there, and I'm like, oh.
I know, right? Then then you say, ooh, excuse me.
Yeah.
We can see who failed geography.
Yeah, exactly. We can see whose school wasn't a big focus of geography.
Exactly.
In fact, I don't even think I had a geography class when I was in school.
In elementary school, I had geography. But, once you get to junior high school and stuff like that, that's when they start teaching you all the stuff that is not going to do you any good later on in life.
All right. So one of the things I've been looking forward to is I'm really psyched about the last episode of Watchmen coming on tomorrow.
Yes, me too. As a matter of fact, I actually have not, because for some reason or another, I didn't watch the last 2 episodes.
Oh, my God. You're missing out on some big revelations.
I know. But what I said I'm going to do is I said, well, you know what? I'm going to wait for tomorrow, and then I'm just going to binge watch the last 2 episodes and then catch the season finale as well.
Okay.
So, I am looking forward to that because this show so far, it has been a revelation as far as storytelling.
Yeah.
Go. Okay, this is something that I could see Alan Moore watching and saying, okay, somebody finally got it.
You know what? I think at some point he's probably going to watch it and he's going to really like it, but he's not going to tell anybody about it.
No, he's not going to say anything. He's not going to say. Which is okay.
Yeah.
I mean, which is okay with me. But I think that he would appreciate what they're doing here. Like I said, he would say, okay, somebody finally got it. I mean, you know what I was doing. Yeah. Because I mean, between that and Crisis, oh my God, Crisis.
I was about to mention that too. Yeah, that's been blowing me away. Seeing Brandon Routh as Superman again was amazing.
Oh, man. You know something? I am so glad for him that he got another chance to do Superman his way.
Yeah.
Because I've always said to people that I didn't feel he got a fair shake in that movie, because you could see hints of where if he had been allowed to play Superman the way he wanted to instead of doing an imitation, I believe that he could have been one of the best Supermen that we've ever had.
Oh, hell yes, yeah. That's another movie we've got to cover at some point as Superman Returns.
Yeah, definitely we're going to cover Superman Returns. We're going to do Crisis in January after the other two parts have finished. We're going to do Watchmen after that. We're going to do the first season after that's over. So you people have got a lot of good things to look forward to as far as what we're doing with, on the TV front.
With Watchmen, I was thinking, because I know we talked about doing it, but because there's so much packed into each episode, I wonder if maybe we should just split it up into like 3 episodes, each one covering one episode covering 3 episodes of the series.
Well, if you want to do it that way,
I think just because there's so much to go in, there's so much to touch on in that, and just like even in 3 episodes alone, I think we'll get like a good 2-hour conversation out of it. That's true, because there is a tremendous amount. There was somebody on Twitter, I don't know who it is. I wish I could find the tweet so I could give them the proper credit, but they said that more happens in 6 episodes of Watchmen than in 6 seasons of other TV shows. Yeah, it's unbelievable. And they are absolutely right. This is what I talk about when I say to people, you know something, because there's one thing that I really cannot stand. You ever had people tell you, you're talking to them and it's some new series and you guys are talking back and forth and you're saying, it's kind of slow and is this, that, and they tell you, but you got to wait until season 2 or 3. That's when it really gets good. Why do I have to sit through a whole season or 2 of so mediocre TV to get to the good stuff? Yeah, I see your point there. Depending on the show, I might be willing to try it, or at least when I was younger, I would have, because looking back on the first season of Buffy, it does not hold up well at all. And when people have talked to me about it and they've been checking out the first season, they say, what's so good about this show? I don't get it. And I'm like, well, it doesn't really get good until season 2 when I think back in retrospect. But I also understand your point that it's a lot to ask someone to sit through 12 or even 24 episodes of something that they're not into. Oh, exactly. Okay, if it's something like 6 episodes or even 8, okay. But when you're asking me to sit through more than 8, we're talking about a considerable chunk of time here that, and I'm getting old. I don't know how much time I got left. I can't be sitting there saying, okay, well, I'll wait till season 3 till it gets good. No. You got to get me right from season 1. If you go, I can't tell you how many shows I've dropped. As a matter of fact, yesterday, me and my wife started watching The Expanse because I had heard so much about it. So last night, we're looking for something to watch. So my wife said, I've heard about this show. I said, yeah. I said, people tell me it's pretty good. Let's start watching. We started by episode 3. You're done. I said, let's watch Green Eggs and Ham. I didn't. I turned it. We went to Netflix. I watched. Nope. Listen, it wasn't engaging me. I wasn't feeling it. It didn't capture my imagination. I'm out. I'm gone. See you later. Goodbye. And here's the good thing about technology now. Let's say it turns out that enough people get on me and say, "Oh, you didn't give it a chance," everything like that. It's still there. I can go back and watch it. Right. It's not like before when I was growing up during the dark ages where once the show went off the air, it was gone. You never saw it again. And some stuff is still hard to get these days, like today's movie, which is pretty good segue, and that's your pick, which is the 1997, I think it was.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the information on my computer now, but it was during the 90s.
Yeah,
it was
1998. There we go.
Yeah, it was the made-for-TV movie Nick Fury, Agent of S.h.i.e.L.D., starring, believe it or not, David Hasselhoff. Now I say believe it or not because it was first broadcast on May 26, 1998 on Fox. When I say that David Hasselhoff starred in this movie, usually I get people either cursing me out, or they're laughing hysterically because they cannot conceive of David Hasselhoff playing Nick Fury. And I tell them, okay, all you got to do is just watch the movie. And I'm gratified to say that there have been a number of people, many of them you and I know online, who have watched this movie and they say, okay, Derek, you know something? I gotta admit, no, it's not a perfect movie. No, but yeah, you're right. And everybody says that it's a lot better than A, it had a right to be, and B, it was better than what they thought it was going to be.
Yeah, watching back, well, you know, something that's interesting about this movie is it was written by David Goyer, who went on to do the Blade trilogy, Batman Begins, and Dark Knight, and a bunch of other stuff too. He wrote the JSA comics for a little bit with Jeff Johns as well, and then he kind of shit the bed when he did Man of Steel and Batman v Superman.
Well, listen, every writer is entitled to a couple of, shall we say, clunkers, but we are dealing with a man who does know his superheroes inside and out. And with Nick Fury, he demonstrated that he knew Nick Fury inside and out because, and I watched it today. I haven't seen this movie, and I you know what? I was going crazy because I had this movie on DVD. Because they used to show it on one of the some movie channel that I used to have years ago, and I burned the movie onto a DVD. I copied it to the DVR and then I burned it onto it. So I had it, but I couldn't find it. So I watched it today on YouTube. Thankfully, you provided a link where you can watch the movie where it's cut up into like 10 to 15 minute segments, which actually, something kind of gave it the feel of being like a Saturday morning serial.
You know what? I think my theory is that the way they cut that up was they cut it up according to the commercial break. So that's why it all kind of fit together pretty well. Like everything kind of moved nicely. Yeah. And so I kind of like that aspect of it, watching it in little chunks like that. But this is a movie that I am firmly convinced, and I tell people this all the time, I'm firmly convinced either Hasselhoff either read Jim Steranko, Nick Fury of S.h.i.e.L.D., or Goyer told him to read it. Yeah. And said that because this is what this movie is. This is Jim Steranko's Nick Fury, Agent of S.h.i.e.L.D. I think it takes a little bit more from the 90s comics than the Steranko stuff, because there's not as much of the stylistic stuff that, and like the kind of like, because Steranko stuff was very epic. And there's a lack of that here. This feels more like when Fury was going up against the organization and, butting heads with like bean counters and that kind of stuff, which was happening in, I want to say Bob Harris's run, but I'm not 100% confident on that. But as far as Hasselhoff himself, like he definitely seems to be basing his portrayal on Steranko's portrayal of Fury. And I watched, this came out when I was in junior high, I think. Or maybe high school, actually, now that I look at it. But anyway, I remember watching this on TV at the time. And this was also a backdoor pilot for a potential TV show. And even back then, I remember, because just started getting into comics around this time, and I'd known a little bit of stuff, but I hadn't read like Steranko's Fury run, but I knew who Nick Fury was. I knew what S.h.i.e.L.D. was. So, and there were some things that kind of surprised me, whereas, you know, they actually had a helicarrier in this. I was not expecting that at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's painfully obvious they didn't have much of a budget to work with.
Oh, yeah.
But they did the best they could. And as a matter of fact, I actually think that the lack of a budget actually worked when it came to stuff like the helicarrier. And I'm going to tell you why real quick. Okay, we got a movie, say like, you know, the Captain America movies, you know, the Winter Soldier and everything like that, where we have these helicarriers that are outrageously huge.
Right.
And they've got like tons of empty space inside of them that are perfect for having big fight scenes. But in the Nick Fury, we have a helicarrier that it's an aircraft carrier that flies. And when they go inside of it, it's almost like a submarine. It's very tight. It's very cramped. Stuff is rusted.
Yeah.
It looks like it, you know, I love the look of it because it looks functional. It doesn't look like a movie set like the helicarriers do in the Avengers and in the Captain America movie. I mean, you know, they look like, you know, starships.
Right.
You know, but in the Nick Fury movie, this thing looks functional.
Yeah.
You know, I'm looking at it and I say, yeah, you know what? This works because it's tight, it's cramped. People are bumping into each other as they go through the hallways. You know, they got little small control panels. It's not these big glittery control panels. You know, everything on this thing is functional. Which works for me. I don't know. Maybe it might not work for other people. But I actually said, okay, you know what? This thing it actually looks more realistic in function than the helicarriers we see in the MCU movies.
Well, it also fits with what's happening in the story because you have this thing where the new director of S.h.i.e.L.D. is, you know, Jack Pincer, who's, you know, more of a penny pincher. So there's this whole issue about S.h.i.e.L.D.'s funding and like its place in the world in a post-Cold War era and all that kind of stuff. So the helicarrier having that kind of lived-in feel and being more of a relic of the Cold War itself really fits into what the movie's trying to do. Whereas in the Avengers, you know, S.h.i.e.L.D. is a much more modern organization. They've got more of a global mandate. So they got a whole lot more stuff behind them. Whereas this one, S.h.i.e.L.D. is being almost on the verge of being downsized.
Yes, being downsized. And I'm glad you brought up that character of Jack Pincer because it's kind of interesting. It goes back to what you said that this version also borrows from another era of Nick Fury and S.h.i.e.L.D. in that it's very plainly situated that Nick Fury is what they call the public director. So in other words, he's the one that everybody knows and, you know, everybody say, oh yeah, he's running things. But then you have this other guy, Jack Pincer, who's kind of like the administrative director.
Right.
You know, he's running the administration. Nick Fury is more like the guy that goes out there and he's on the front lines and he's in the field and he's directing like the military aspects.
Yeah.
A military director would probably be a more apt description of his function. He's the military director of S.h.i.e.L.D., where this other guy is the administrative, you know, director. And that, like you said, he's the bean counter. He's the one that actually has to go to Congress and he has to, you know, explain why S.h.i.e.L.D. does what they do while Nick is out there on the front lines fighting Hydra and, you know, the Red Skull and whoever.
So what were your opinions when you first saw this movie? Did you... Because I know you're a Steranko fan from way back. So, were you disappointed at all in it? Were you really pleased with it? And how did that compare to your opinions now?
I was pleased because, like I said, you know what? I didn't expect much from this movie, which is why I'm like most people that see it say, you know something, it's better than they had a right to be. Because for one, I am not a big David Hasselhoff fan. I got nothing against him, but you know, the guy never did nothing for me. Unlike a lot of my friends, I was not a fan of Knight Rider because I found the whole concept of a talking car utterly and totally stupid beyond words. You know, really. Now, I mean, a talking car where, oh man, that's cool. A talking car. Wait a minute. Batman didn't talk to the Batmobile. The Green Hornet did not talk to the Black Beauty. Speed Racers did not talk to the Mach 5. They didn't need talking cars. Yeah. No, I don't need talking cars. However, let me say something about David Hasselhoff. And this is why I think a lot of times remakes don't work, and the remake of Knight Rider didn't work, because you need certain actors to pull off certain concepts. Mm-hmm. And David Hasselhoff made you believe he had a relationship with this car. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason. That's the magic that he was able to work in that role, which is why people still love it to this day, I think. And in this movie, he convinced me that he was Nick Fury. Against all of my misgivings, he did convince me that he was Nick Fury. I mean, there are scenes in this movie, especially when he gets in the black leather outfit and he's got the guns and everything like that. The guy looks like a Steranko drawing of Nick Fury.
Oh yeah, there's some stills from here. Like there's one of my favorite ones. It's like a recreation of I think it's either Steranko or Lee Weeks, but it's this very famous image of Fury holding his gun up and like peering around a corner. And there's a photo online of Hasselhoff recreating that image, and it looks perfect.
Yeah. And I mean, he gets the attitude of the character right. Mm-hmm. There's hardly a scene where he goes through here where he doesn't have the cigar stuck in his mouth, just like Nick Fury does in the comic books. You know, Nick Fury it doesn't matter what he's doing, he's got that cigar stuck in his mouth. Mm-hmm. And for most of the movie, Hasselhoff goes in and he's got that cigar stuck in his mouth. Mm-hmm. And you have all of these other characters that are brought in. Dum Dum Dugan, Gabe Jones, who we know, of course, they were his partners from the Howling Commandos. They don't make any mention of that. And as a matter of fact, his World War II history is left out of this, which I kind of go along with.
That doesn't surprise me at all. My whole thing is, I believe that if they had gone to series with this, they would have just had him as a Cold War vet as opposed to being a World War II vet. Right,
yeah, because you know something weird too. And as a matter of fact, that was one of my problems in the comic books, because there was a Howard Chaykin story where it was revealed that Nick Fury was getting regular inoculations of something called the Infinity Formula that was keeping him young, which I hated. A lot of my friends said, oh man, that's so cool that, well, it explains why he's which to me, part of the charm and appeal of Nick Fury was that he was a guy that was able to hold his own and survive and even be successful in a world with super soldiers and Iron Men and Asgardian gods, simply because he was this old tough son of a bitch. He was the toughest cat that was on the planet who wasn't a superhuman. You know, to me, that was the whole thing about Nick Fury. Now, when you go and give him this Infinity Formula that makes him young and immortal and stuff like that, you know, I don't know. For me, it kind of takes away from the specialness of the character, of what made him so unique. And what a lot of people don't remember about Nick Fury was that he was like the only character at one time that we saw him in two different time periods. You had the comic book Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos, which was about Nick and his wartime adventures, you know, leading the commando unit. And then you had Nick Fury, Agent of S.h.i.e.L.D., where it's 20 years later and he's this James Bondian super spy.
Right.
You know, so Nick Fury was a very unique character. And to me, he remains so for that reason.
They also had it gave them, as he got older, the Infinity Formula gave them another issue, whereas a lot of his World War II buddies were now working with him in S.h.i.e.L.D. So you had like Gabe Jones, you had Dugan working with him in S.h.i.e.L.D. And so then they had to say, oh, well, we're giving them the Infinity Formula too.
Right, yeah.
Which kind of detracts from it being a special thing then.
Yeah, see, after a while, then it becomes, you know, ridiculous, because then, now you got to explain, which is why I'm with you. I think that it was a good move for them to just, in this movie, just make him, okay, well, he's a veteran of the Cold War. Maybe he was in Vietnam because it was the 90s and it still wasn't too, or make him, or like what they did for Iron Man. They did in his first movie. They updated it, and when he had his accident, when he got shrapnel in his vest, he was in Afghanistan.
Yeah, or the Punisher. Both the Tom Jane version and the recent Netflix version with John Barenthal. They made him an Iraq War veteran instead.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's what you got to do. You got to, and I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem sliding these characters along. I mean, the timeline so that they stay relevant and they stay young, and so we don't have to keep constantly explaining why this 80-year-old man with Captain America, it's a different thing. Okay, right. He's got the super soldier thing. Okay, we can buy that.
But and when his whole thing is he was frozen in ice, so. His whole man out of time aspect, you don't need him to have fought in a recent war to make that work.
Exactly.
In fact, in some ways, the out of man out of time thing works better the more that he's separated from World War II, because in the comics, it had only been 20 years that he'd been frozen as ice. That's one thing, but the world was different in the post-war era, but not as different as him waking up in 2010.
Right, because when Captain America, when they brought him back, it was the 1960s. Okay, World War II wasn't that far away from most people.
Right. I mean, you had Reed Richards and Ben Grimm. They were World War II veterans.
Exactly. And matter of fact, there were stories where they had met Captain America and they had met Nick Fury during World War II. Right. They were secret missions and stuff like that, because I think Ben Grimm was he was a fighter pilot, and Reed Richards, he was working for the organization, wait a minute. I know this, the OSS.
Right, yeah.
Which is what eventually became the CIA. Reed worked for them. Yeah. So, so the 1960s was not that far removed from World War II. I mean, you had men who had fought in World War II, that the company. So, having that time shift for Captain America, that wasn't too jarring.
And
like you said,
it also wasn't really I don't know for sure because I'm not Stan Lee, but I don't think he really did it with the thought of doing the man out of time thing. I think that just kind of happened. He just wanted an explanation for why why Captain America had been quiet all these years.
Right. Well, I think that actually as Captain America progressed, I think that they really made a big deal out of it starting around the 1970s. But that's when Captain America's stories got a little bit more political, which was what was going on as far as, there was urban unrest. Right. There was mistrust of the government. All that stuff was going on. So, of course, the Captain America stories, they reflected that as well. And
right.
He
Watergate,
was
the Pentagon Papers, all that stuff.
Right.
So having Cap as this kind of figure, like a symbol of the old America and the public's old attitude about America and how it had drastically shifted, it worked really well.
Yeah, which to me is what Captain America is supposed to be. Which is another reason why I really get hot up under the collar when people tell, comic books, they're not supposed to be political. Superheroes not supposed to be political. Well, what the hell do you think Captain America is?
Jack Kirby was getting death threats from American Nazis when he created the character. I mean, people don't realize this because they think now, it's Captain America punching out Hitler. That's no big deal. It was a huge deal back then because
of course it was.
We weren't at war yet back then. So you have a comic book where your superhero is punching out a world leader that actually had a lot of support in the U.S. at the time, which a lot of people don't like to acknowledge anymore. But that'd be like you do a comic today where you show Captain America punching out, I don't even know who, but at this point it probably wouldn't be that surprising. But it would be very controversial.
People have to remember, and folks, Perry and I are not making this stuff up. You go online. Most of you on your computers all day long anyway, so Go look up some history for a change instead of bitching about, oh yeah, well, this ain't like this and this ain't like this. The Nazi Party and the Ku Klux Klan were having parades in Washington, D.C.
Yeah. The Nazis had a big rally at Madison Square Garden, I believe.
At Madison Square Garden, for God's sake, yeah.
And in fact, there was, if you go back and if you read like old Captain America back issues, like one of the problems with the graphic novels is they don't reproduce the letters columns. But you go back, you read those old issues around that were being printed in the 70s and the 80s, you read those letter columns, oh my God. You think people are bitching about politics in comics now? Go back then. Look at all the hate mail that they had printed when Falcon replaced Hawkeye in the Avengers.
Oh my God, yeah.
There were tons of letters talking about political correctness run amok. And now people are saying that comics are too political now. You know, comics these days are not even close to being as political as they were then.
Not even as close to being political as when they was. I remember, as a matter of fact, I remember the backlash that Marvel got when they had their whole Secret Empire storyline, and at the end of it, the villain of the piece was Richard Nixon.
Yeah, I mean they never came right out and said it was Nixon, but it was obviously hinted that it was Nixon.
Oh yeah, well of course it was. Yeah, I mean if you read between the lines, Marvel got a huge backlash because of that. They didn't show his face. They didn't show his face, but because of the dialogue and stuff like that, yeah, you knew, and the expression on Captain America's face, because he said, "Oh my God, why you?" You know, but yeah, and they got a huge backlash because of that.
Well, you remember in the '80s, I think it was during Grunwald's run when he was the captain, and one of these issues, they had the president being transformed into a reptile by the Serpent Society, and the cover shows this on the cover. You've got Ronald Reagan as a reptilian monster, and the cover copy says the most terrifying snake of them all.
Yeah,
and you're telling me that wasn't political? Come on.
Yeah. I mean, comics were very political at one time, and like you say, you're 100% on the note. People bitch and moan and whine about comics being political now. They are nowhere near as political as they once were.
Well, it's like I said when we were talking about the Watchmen movie, that one meme where the guy says, you know, I like comics, but I don't like them being so political. By the way, my favorite comics are X-Men and Watchmen, two of the most political comics ever made.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, I mean, it's just, but that's a whole other episode that we could take up easily 2 hours talk about politics in comic books.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, you know what? Make a note of that.
Oh my God, there have been tons. You go on Amazon, if you look up some of the different types of academic books that have been written about comics, there's a whole genre of textbooks and essays focused just on politics in comics throughout history.
Yeah. I mean, look at Howard the Duck. Howard the Duck was social satire that dealt into politics for a time when Howard ran for president.
Yeah. Well, you go back to the Superman comics way back when, during the Great Depression, they were all about social consciousness and social justice.
That's all it was. Superman wasn't fighting supervillains. He was fighting the fat cats.
And slumlords.
He was fighting, anybody that was a target of the time that was, how can I put this without getting vulgar? Without fucking over the people. Let me just say it. That's what Superman was fighting.
Exactly. Yeah.
He was holding rich guys out the window or throwing them off of rooftops and stuff like that. Union busters, he was throwing them in front of trains and stuff. I don't know. I despair sometimes, Perry, because the ignorance of people who claim that comics is their hobby and they'll go on and on about how they love it and, they know all about it. But the depth of their ignorance continually staggers me. Oh, yeah. Because I say, no, you don't know what you're talking about. You really don't.
Absolutely.
If you say that comic books aren't political, they most certainly are.
All right, so now let's get back to Nick Fury. But this movie.
Oh yeah, that's right, Nick Fury. Yeah, that's what we're supposed to do. It gets like this, folks.
It does.
It gets like this.
You just got to roll with it.
Yeah, exactly. Just roll with it, folks. We will get to where we're going eventually.
Yeah,
Just hang on. Okay. So going back to Nick Fury.
So so we were talking about the set design and the aesthetics of all that, and actually, what you were talking about Nick Fury and being alive in the modern day. I don't know if you know anything, but several years back, Marvel did an event called Original Sin, I think it was, and it showed it was kind of like the last Nick Fury story, and it showed that the Infinity Formula had really not done such a good job of keeping him young, and it kind of deteriorated his mind. So he was actually there were like a series of LMDs that he was sending out, but the real Nick Fury was like this really old guy. And there was one scene where Dugan comes to him and he says, I don't know what you're talking about. I took the Infinity Formula. I'm fine. And then Fury says to him, he's like, no, Dugan, you're not fine. And he shows him there's this bay of all these Dugan LMDs. And Fury has just been transferring his consciousness into successive ones as he dies.
Oh, that's messed up.
It was pretty messed up. But it was also, that story, it started off really strong. It kind of went off the rails. But I kind of liked how they explained away the Infinity Formula stuff and how they kind of updated things like that. And
that's the one where the Watcher gets killed, right?
Right, that one, yeah.
Yeah, see, there's one reason why, I mean, he's a Watcher, for goodness sake. You can't kill a Watcher. That's... Yeah, but I do remember hearing something about that storyline. It was supposed to be Nick Fury took over being the Watcher or something like that.
It was something like that. I can't remember all the details. It's been a long time since I read it. But it was one of those stories that started off really strong. Like the whole idea of who killed the Watcher and stole his eye. Like that mystery, it really intrigued me. But as it went on, it just kind of got meh. Yeah. Which was really disappointing because that was Jason Aaron wrote that, and he's usually turned out some really awesome stuff. So So that was a little bit disappointing, but I kind of like some of the stuff they did with Fury. And now, to the point you were making about how Fury is this normal guy who's able to hang with super soldiers and thunder gods and, billionaire philanthropists in flying armor, they introduced Nick Fury Jr., who is Nick Fury's long-lost son, and
black, of course.
Black, of course, yeah. He has a black mother. Nick Fury was his white father. So, of course, he bears a striking resemblance to Samuel L. Jackson.
Well, why not?
But you know what? And now they've got that. They've gotten back to that idea of Fury just being this normal guy in a world of superheroes.
Yeah.
So they do.
Which is
it was a pretty part of me when they did that, I rolled my eyes a little bit. I'm just like, come on, Nick Fury Jr. But it actually did end up working out in the end, I think.
Well, I guess after a while they just dropped the junior and just started calling him Nick Fury.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I figured it. Hey, you know something? I don't have a problem with that. Like people were saying to me, they were saying, because as you know, me and you have had discussions about this. I have discussions with other people about it. I'm not interested in seeing a black Superman. There's certain characters that I don't believe that just because you give them a deep dark tan, that doesn't make them black characters.
Right.
But I did have a problem with Nick Fury being black because as originally conceived, the black Nick Fury was for an alternate universe.
Right.
The Ultimates, So, which I felt did restore him to his unique status because, as I said earlier, to me, that's the whole thing about Nick Fury. He's just the toughest son of a bitch on the planet who's not a superhuman.
Right. And you know what? If you're going to have the toughest son of a bitch on the planet who's not a superhuman, who else are you going to get to play him but Samuel L. Jackson?
Well, there you go. Exactly. Exactly. I mean, you need somebody that can convince you that he can go toe-to-toe with Captain America and Iron Man and Thor.
Right.
And they'll respect him and they'll listen to him. And who else? Yeah, exactly. Who else you going to get success? If they were going to get a white actor to play Nick Fury. Now, I really can't think of anybody who have that same kind of gravitas. Well, maybe Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell would be really good because, I mean, he practically played Nick Fury in Escape from New York anyway.
Yeah.
But you know who I'm thinking of is Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Oh, yeah, bingo. There we go.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. He could do that role in his sleep. But
no doubt.
That actually brings up a cool point about this movie is that, like, unlike you, I was a huge Knight Rider fan because Knight Rider was on the air when I was a little kid. So it was like crack to me. I mean, you got a talking car that fights crime. You know, of course, as a little kid, that's incredible.
Well, see, that's another thing. When Knight Rider came on the air, I was of a certain age.
Right.
And I think that you have... I don't know. Some people say I'm full of shit, but I honestly think that you have to catch certain programs, certain movies at a certain age for them to work for you. Like for me, I never got the Goonies.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, I was an adult when I saw the Goonies, so it didn't work for me. It didn't resonate for me like it did for certain people. There's this other movie. What is it? The Monster Club?
Monster Squad.
Monster Squad. Yeah, I never got that.
Mm-hmm.
But I've got friends of mine that worship that movie. You know, the Lost Boys.
I was gonna mention that because Lost Boys never really grabbed me either. But you know what? I didn't see that movie until I was probably in high school, maybe even college. And by that point, back when Lost Boys came out, it was revolutionary because they'd never had that reimagination of the vampire as this kind of like punk outlaw type. Like the vampire was always like this aristocratic old blood type European type of thing. So
Dracula.
Right. So reimagining, and also, you know, Interview with the Vampire too, the books, even though the movie came out later. But the idea of vampire as like rebellious punk, that was a total new idea when Lost Boys came out. And it spoke to a whole generation of people who were in that place in their life. Because the 80s, it was, you know, very much steeped in Reagan-era conservatism and all that. So that idea spoke to a lot of people. But me, I started watching Buffy when I was like in 8th grade. So I had already seen like the rebellious vampire thing. I had gotten used to it. So when I saw Lost Boys, I'm like, what's so special about this?
Yeah. You know, it didn't do anything for me. And as far as Knight Rider went, see, when I was a kid, there was a cartoon called Speed Buggy. Mm-hmm. And Speed Buggy was about this dune buggy that could talk. It was it came out during that era when Scooby-Doo was real big, so there was a lot of knockoffs of that concept. And Speed Buggy was a dune buggy that had these. One guy was the mechanic, looked just like Shaggy, and there was a pretty girl, and then there was the driver, and they went around solving mysteries and going to races and stuff like that. So when I saw Knight Rider, I just took it as a grown-up version of Speed Buggy. That's why it never did anything, you know, for me. But but I know a lot of people, they loved it, they worshipped it and stuff like that, and you know, I said, okay, well, whatever.
Well, you know the urban legend about how Knight Rider started, right?
What's that?
That the producer came up with the idea, and he said, well, look, let's do a TV show where we get this really handsome actor and we give him a talking car. That way, all the heavy acting can be done by the guy who voices the car, and the actor can just sit there and look pretty.
Okay, I can see that.
Which seems to have worked because you did have William Daniels doing the voice of Kit, which was perfect choice, and then end up later being Mr. Feeney on Boy Meets World.
Right, which is where I knew him from, you know, primarily. I know him from that and from the musical 1776.
Yeah, I remember seeing that in history class.
Oh, I love that movie. Got on Blu-ray. I watch it even when it's not. I watch it when it's not the 4th of July. And I also think that, okay, you had the 1980s, which is when Knight Rider, you know, was really big.
Yeah.
The 1970s and the 1980s was a unique period of history where only certain things could exist that could never exist in any other time period in American history. Trust me, I know. It's like the Nightmare on Elm Street. Okay, Freddy Krueger is a molester and killer of children. Now, this was a guy who was a cultural icon during the 1980s, mind
Oh,
you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's
people
like,
don't.
I mean, we talked about this idea before, but I remember when I was a kid, they were making TV shows out of R-rated movies. Kids' Saturday morning cartoon shows out of RoboCop and Rambo.
And Rambo was a cartoon character. Yeah. So, I mean, so you had these certain concepts that could only exist at certain periods of history. And Knight Rider, I think, is one of them, which is why, because I remember that they tried to reboot it or tried to, they tried to remake it and it didn't work. I think it lasted maybe like a season.
Yeah, it was one season. And I think it was actually like cut short before the end of the first season. And part of the reason is that the show kind of got off on the wrong foot. I like the show. It was not perfect, but I think part of the problem is with a show like Knight Rider, you've got to please two masters, right? You've got to please people who remember the 80s show, which looking back, it was kind of campy and cheesy and but that kind of style doesn't fit so much with today's modern viewer. So you're trying to appeal to, so you had the people who were it wasn't cheesy enough for the people who were after the nostalgia factor, and it wasn't serious enough for the modern day TV viewer.
Yeah, because the whole 80s, the 1970s and 1980s, it was a whole style and sensibility that simply does not exist anymore.
Right.
Which is why there are certain things that I feel are best left back then. Not because I've got this rabid hatred of remakes and everything like that, but if you don't have that sensibility, if you don't have that mindset, you can't go back and make it what it once was. You have to make it something else simply because the country does not have that consciousness anymore. I mean, like there's a lot of things that we laughed at and we thought was cute and we thought was funny back in the 1980s and everything like that. They don't fly today.
Right.
They don't. People say, oh, well, I can't watch that. That's racist. That's sexist. That's, but like I tell people all the time, one of my favorite stories to tell people is when I saw Blazing Saddles in the theater. And, like I tell people that, they say, oh my God, well, what happened? What happened? I said, people went and they laughed, white and black. Believe me, race riots did not break out because, they said the N-word on screen. Black people and white people together, sitting in the theater together, and they laughed about it. And they left out the theater and they went home after having a satisfying experience. What does that prove? I don't know. I just all the time use that as an example that people think that for some reason now is certain things that you say or do is going to cause a riot to break out. And such is simply not the case. And for what is supposed to be a discussion about a simple TV B movie, we've already got into politics.
Twice we got on this track.
You see, people, you get a lot more for your buck than you thought you was going to get with this podcast.
The Nick Fury episode where we don't talk about Nick Fury.
Well, we don't talk about Nick Fury at all.
But so I came to it knowing David Hasselhoff from Knight Rider, and I had fond memories of that. And I remember because I think, so the people on the internet, they were kind of like mocking the idea of David Hasselhoff playing Nick Fury. And I didn't really have too much of an opinion of it one way or the other. I had like kind of vague memories of Knight Rider, but that was about it. So when I watched it, I'm like, oh, he's not bad. And watching it again last night, I'm kind of surprised actually, because he not only does he look the part, like he looks like he stepped right out of a Steranko comic. The only thing he's missing is the blue jumpsuit and the white temples, and that's it. Like everything else, it's like vintage Steranko.
Yeah, there's a scene where, after he's talked to his old buddies and, they talked him into coming back in the shit. Because when the movie starts out, something has happened. He was kicked out of S.h.i.e.L.D. 5 years ago, and he's living in a mine someplace in the Yukon for some reason. So Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, boy, I can't believe I got that right, played by Lisa Rinna, comes to get him and say, listen, you got to come back because Nick Fury thought that he destroyed Hydra 5 years ago, but they are coming back in the form of the son and daughter of his most hated enemy, Baron Wolfgang von Strucker.
Yeah, so the kids, the Strucker children, they kind of combine, they're kind of like a pastiche of a few different characters. So you've got Andrea von Strucker, who is kind of merged with the character of Viper, who is also Madame Hydra in the comics. They call her Viper. Yeah, they call her, at first she's called, von Strucker, and then like halfway through the movie, they start calling her Viper. And then you've got her brother, Werner, who in the comics, Werner von Strucker was her older brother, and her twin brother was Andreas, and together they were both mutants, and they were known as Fenris.
Right.
So you kind of got there's like this mix of characters and concepts together to try and create them. And then you also had a bunch of the supporting characters from the Agent of S.h.i.e.L.D. comics. Like you had Val, you had Dum Dum Dugan, I was kind of surprised they had him in there. I wasn't expecting him to be in there. Gabe Jones, Clay Quartermain, Alexander Pierce, Kate Neville. Yeah.
Kate Neville. What's her name? The other, Gail Runciter.
Oh, she was part of it too? Oh, yeah. She was a S.h.i.e.L.D. agent in the comics.
Yeah, Gail Runciter is in there. I mean, that's another thing that I like about this movie is that when you're watching it, you're hearing all of these names that you know from the comic book. And I'm saying, okay, wow, Alexander Pierce, yeah, I know him. Mm-hmm. Okay, Kate Neville, yeah, I know him. Dum Dum and Gabriel John and Clay Quartermain, I mean, it's all of these names. Like I said, I don't know. I'm pretty sure the whole tone of this movie comes from Goya, who knows his comic books inside and out. And speaking of tone, I was saying something on Facebook early on today to Lucas Garrett that I was watching it today, and it really struck me that, something? This is a movie that in the feel of it and the tone and the pacing and everything is really not that far from the MCU movies that we have now.
No, not really. I mean, I think it's just, there are some things, like I think it mostly comes down to, two things. It comes down to dialogue, and it comes down to design. Like you were talking about earlier with the look of the helicarrier and all that. And the leather costumes and all that, like they're okay, but they're not like the kind of leather costumes that you see Samuel L. Jackson walking around in.
Oh, no. Well, of course not.
And also the big weakness for this is, well, there are two. One is Sandra Hess as Viper.
I always get into this with people. Nobody likes her except for me. I like her. I do. You know why? Because is she over the top? Yes. Does she wildly overact? Yes, she does. There's a scene where she kills this guy, and I guess she's supposed to be having an orgasm while she kills the guy. It's like downright laughable, I mean, but the woman throws herself into it with such abandon. I can't help but admire her willingness to go so far over the top, and considering that everybody else pretty much plays this movie straight. Mm-hmm. I mean, everybody else acts like they're really in a serious, down and dirty spy thriller. Really. Yeah. She kind of stands out because she's more like over the top, and she is more, for lack of a better term, she's more of a comic book villain.
Especially in that dress she wears at the climax of the film.
Oh my God!
With the high Dracula-esque collar. What the fuck was that?
I love And I love how she gives the scene like a little hint of incest with her father.
Oh God, that creeped the hell out of me.
Yeah. You look at it, you go, ooh,
I was just watching the movie, and I did not remember that from the original. Like, I remember Strucker came back at the end, but I didn't remember just how gross it was. And just watching it again last night, I'm just like, oh God, I think I'm going to throw up.
Yeah. But this is what I'm saying. That's what. Yes, I understand what people are talking about when they're saying that she's wildly overacting and it's just too much. I don't know. I say, you know what? If you're gonna swing for the fences, go ahead and swing, baby.
It's weird because it's like you got a Roger Moore Bond villain wandered into one of the early Sean Connery Bond films.
Bingo! You just hit on it. Yeah. That's exactly what it is. She's a villain from the Roger Moore Bond era in a Sean Connery movie. Yeah.
And not the later Sean Connery movies, the early ones when they took ththemselves really seriously.
Yeah, we're talking about From Russia with Love and Goldfinger.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. But I don't know. For me, do I laugh at some of it? Of course I laugh at some of it. But that's okay too. I mean, because listen, I don't take this seriously anyway. I take it as entertainment, but overall, when I look at the package of everything that they got right, and I'm that type of person, they get so much right in this movie that the couple of things they get wrong, I can overlook it because there's so much that they get right here.
Yeah, there's some stuff where some of the dialogue though in this is pretty bad. That's the one thing that really stands out to me rewatching it. Like I'm with the exception of Hess, the performances are pretty much fine. The plot is fine. It's pretty standard, spy thriller plot. Nothing at all is an issue with that. But a lot of the dialogue just does not really work. It's just a little bit too cheesy. So one example is when Fury's with Viper and he sees Strucker frozen in the suspended animation. And he says, he's a bit uglier than I remember. You're frozen popsicle. Get it, Andrea? Popsicle?
Yeah.
Like stuff like that. Or when he talks about blowing smoke up your hoo-ha or things like that.
Yeah. But again, I think that's because he read the comic books and he was trying to talk like Nick Fury.
Yeah.
Saying things that Nick Fury, would say, come up with some kind of I think he works too hard at trying to come up with like these sarcastic kind of catchphrases.
Yeah.
And there's even at one point that Viper says, "Oh, what's the matter? You don't have nothing smart to say." She said, "You always got something smart to say. You don't have nothing smart to say." Where she's kissed him and she's infected him with the death's head thing, the virus. Yeah, but what was I was going to cite as there's a scene where Val and Nick are supposed to be having this little heart-to-heart about their past relationship that to me comes off as kind of forced.
Mm-hmm. Well, Lisa Rinna in this, like, she's okay, but she doesn't really fit the part. Like, she's not really what I think of when I think of the Contessa.
Well, yeah, she's not European enough.
Well, not only that, but just like her, it's not only her appearance, but I mean just her overall poise, like the way she walks, the way she speaks. Her character doesn't have that kind of like haughty arrogance that the Contessa had.
Right. Yeah. She doesn't. Well, like I said, she because I guess the Contessa is supposed to be, some kind of royalty because she's a Contessa.
Right.
She's supposed to be some kind of blue blood. And yeah, Lisa Rinna doesn't come off like that at all. She doesn't. Even though I love her, I think she's gorgeous. I mean, she never looked hotter than she did back in this period.
Oh, hell
before
no,
she messed up. Before she messed up her lips with the collagen and the plastic surgery and everything, which even now she admits was a big mistake that she didn't have to do. I think that if they were going to make her, when I think of the Contessa, I think of somebody like tall and elegant.
Yeah. And
as gorgeous as Lisa Rinna is, she's not tall and elegant. Mm-hmm. She's more like a street fighter, scrappy type of,
Right.
Yeah.
Now, if I was to, you know what? Morena Baccarin.
Yeah,
She would. That's someone like that is who I picture when I think of the Contessa, especially her from Firefly.
Right. See, she would have been better off. Lisa Rinna would have been better off playing somebody like Kate Neville.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, if she played Kate Neville, she was in it. But yeah, when you think of the Contessa,
or even Viper.
Yeah. Sandra Hess would have made a good Contessa. Yeah, because she's got that kind of haughty, kind of arrogant type of attitude. Hess
would probably have made that scene when they were having the heart-to-heart even more laughable.
Yeah, probably it would have. But yeah, that scene to me, it comes off like kind of forced, like they said, okay, well, you know something, we need to have a break in the action and we need to slow things down here for a minute.
Yeah.
And I kind of get the feeling that's the only reason why that scene is there.
Yeah.
Because okay, we've already gotten the notion that him and the Contessa, they've had a relationship, and for whatever reason it didn't work out and everything like that. We really don't need to stop the story dead in the water so that they can have their heart-to-heart moment. Mm-hmm. Or if you need to have it, they should have had it in the jump jet while they were going to confront
Viper,
because I believe that right after that they got to go and they got to rescue somebody. I think.
Oh, that's Kate Neville. Is that when they're going after Runciter?
Right. Yeah, Runciter. You're right. Yeah, I knew it was one of those that was going there. But yeah, have that conversation. Because see, I'm a big believer in that. If you're going to have a conversation like that, have it in a moving vehicle.
Yeah. Keep the story moving. One of my examples I like to use is from the movie Silver Streak, where there's a part in the movie where Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder, they've stolen a red Jaguar because they got thrown off the train, and they're rushing to Kansas City because they got to catch the train in order to save the heroin from the bad guys. But while they're in the car going, they're having their heart-to-heart talk. But we still got something going on. Right.
There's action. They're in the car moving along while they're going to their confrontation. See, I'm a big believer in doing that type of stuff in an action movie. You can have these heart-to-heart things, but have it in a moving vehicle when the heroes are going someplace.
Right, especially when you're going to have the scene when they're going someplace anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So why not have them moving along there?
Yeah, be more economical with your screen time.
That's all I'm saying. Be more economical with the stream. Don't stop the story dead. After you've built up this momentum, don't stop the story dead, because now you have to work at building back up that momentum now.
Right. Now, the story of this movie, I think if you took this screenplay, if you touched up the dialogue and you did this as a big budget Nick Fury Agent of S.h.i.e.L.D. movie, have Samuel L. Jackson play the character, I think people would have no problem with it whatsoever. Like, story-wise, it's fine, but the big issue is just really the dialogue, I think.
It's a solid story. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm with you. I have no problem with the story. It's a solid story with the Death's Head virus, and they're going to infect New York with it, and they got to get it from the frozen body of Baron Strucker. That's why she kidnapped the body. It's a solidly constructed story from start to finish.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no problem with that. Like you said, the only problems is the budget. I feel that if they had like just a couple of million more dollars with this movie, I don't know how much it costs, but if they had like just a couple of more $1 million, like
the budget was $6 million, so they could have done a lot with just a few extra million.
Yeah, exactly. But again, I gotta say that the lack of the budget also, to me, helps with the reality of it. Because, okay, we're not dealing with this wildly overblown, hyper-technological, kind of organization that Hydra is. They're just as scruffy as S.h.i.e.L.D. is, apparently.
Right.
They're having their budgetary crisis as well, which I kind of like it. I kind of like the grunginess of this movie. It's not polished. A lot of the action takes place in like abandoned buildings and warehouses and stuff like that. There's a grunginess to this movie that gives it a level of reality, I feel.
Right.
that you wouldn't get if they had, like, I don't know, $60 million and stuff like that. Then you'd have all these nice shiny sets and, everything. There's a hands-on type of thing here. Like I know there's one scene that's in the warehouse where a lot of the equipment that Hydra has looks jury rigged, like stuff like like they put together from I don't know, shit that they stole or found even, and they put this stuff together. And I don't know. For me, it works. I like it.
It mostly works. There's a lot of stuff. I think this movie has got kind of a bad reputation just because of the fact that it was a made-for-TV movie and it starred David Hasselhoff. I think a lot of people, because I've seen a lot of reviews looking back on this movie, and they're just absolutely brutal, and I think a lot of the reason is because they're going in with that preconception that, well, it's a low-budget TV movie and it stars David Hasselhoff, so it's going to be a joke right from the start.
Yeah, which is why I've been a champion of this movie for years. I've written a review of it, and anytime anybody asks me, well, what movie should I see that Marvel made that, a lot of people, I always tell them, first movie out of my mouth, Nick Fury, Agent of S.h.i.e.L.D. And just like you said, they look at me and they like, what? Really? Are you serious? I said, listen, just watch it. Trust me. And like I said earlier, I am gratified that I have a lot of converts that have come back and told me, yeah, Dirk, something, I got to admit, you were right. It wasn't that bad.
Right. Like, it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but especially when you consider the time. I mean, I think this may have come out before Blade did even. So
yeah, it did. It came out before Blade. And like I said, 90% of the time, they play it perfectly straight in this movie. This is like a straight spy thriller. Yeah. People get killed. Some of them in some pretty brutal ways. Nobody's winking at the camera here and saying, "Oh, aren't we having a good time?" Everybody plays it straight.
Now, at the time when this came out, Marvel and Fox were planning a bunch of different made-for-TV movies. And I think they'd only ended up making two of them. They made this one and they made Generation X. Now, Generation X was flat out terrible. It was god-awful from start to finish. But this was...
I've never seen it, but everybody that has seen, and I'm talking about diehard X-Men fans like you, have told me it's an abomination.
Oh, God. It makes X-Men Origins look decent.
I like X-Men Origins.
Well, we can fight about that another time.
You caught that, right, folks?
I knew you were going to say that, too. I knew you were going to say that. I still fell into it.
You knew I was going to say it just because I knew y'all was going to get that reaction from you, man. Oh, we're going to have so much fun when we talk about that.
Oh, that gives me an idea for next episode's movie. So,
all
right.
Okay. Get a grip, Derek.
But yeah, so Generation X, god awful piece of shit. But this one, not too bad. It's pretty good, and I think. And they've been planning other ones. I think they'd planned to do a She-Hulk one as well, and I think they'd planned a few other ones. But after Generation X, after Agent of S.h.i.e.L.D., they basically gave up on it because the ratings were not very good on either one. And with Generation X, it makes perfect sense. But with this, I can't remember I think Generation X came out before this. So, and I think that a lot of the negative. There was a lot of negative splashback on this, and so people kind of dismissed it and didn't even give it a chance just because of that. Also, Hasselhoff's reputation as being this kind of like cheesy B actor type of thing that also kind of hurt the film. And it's too bad because Hasselhoff really commits to this role. He does a really good job here. I mean...
Listen, I tell people all the time, if for no other reason... see this because, and I never thought I would say this, but yes, folks, I'm saying it. If you want to see this movie, see it for no other reason than for David Hasselhoff. Because, the guy commits to this role 100%.
Because I think this is actually the first time I've seen Hasselhoff really act. Because most of the time, he doesn't really give much performance. He's just kind of like this smiling, winky guy nodding at the camera and like hamming it up. But he put some effort into this.
He falls back on his charm, which he has tons of. You know, I will admit, the guy's got tons of charm. But no, he reminds me of, really?
Who?
Don't laugh. He reminds me a lot of Burt Reynolds. In that Burt Reynolds could also act when he wanted to.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point.
But he was content most of the time to just fall back on his charm and just be Burt Reynolds.
Well, you know who else is like that is George Clooney.
Yeah, bingo. Yeah, George Clooney too.
I mean, George Clooney's got he's got charm coming out his ass, but you see him in something like Syriana or Michael Clayton, and you're like, the dude's got some chops.
Yeah, he can act when he wants to act. Mm-hmm. He can act. The problem is that a lot of times he doesn't want to act.
Right. He just kind of he does his George Clooney thing, and it's entertaining enough, so nobody minds. But because he's got the talent to really push the envelope if he wants to. Now Hasselhoff's doesn't have that level of talent, but he can do more than what you'd expect of him.
Exactly, like you said, he actually acts in this movie. He doesn't fall back on, being charming and everything, which he did in Knight Rider, like a lot of times.
Right. That's pretty much all it was. Because most of the heavy duty acting was lifted by William Daniels.
Right.
So you got William Daniels. There's no point in even trying to compete.
Yeah. Well, there you go. You fall back on the charm. But there are some actors who can do that, like Burt Reynolds. Burt Reynolds coasted in a whole lot of his movies, simply just being Burt Reynolds.
Right.
But if you saw him in some other things where he was really called upon to stretch himself and stuff like that, Burt Reynolds could act.
Like Boogie Nights.
Yeah, for example, the man should have won the man got robbed that year.
Yeah.
If there was any movie Burt Reynolds should have won the Academy Award for, it was Boogie Nights, because he acted his ass off in that movie.
Hell yeah.
And he knows he did. He knows he did. Know who else is another lazy actor? Nicolas Cage.
Oh, hell yeah.
Nicolas Cage. Oh, you remember that period when Nicolas Cage just fell back on doing Elvis every time that he couldn't be bothered with doing any kind of characterization?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He just fell back on doing Elvis.
Yeah. But there was a period there, like in the late 90s, when Cage was doing some really good work. Like there's kind of a hint of the stuff he'd fall back into, and he had that really god-awful accent in Con Air. But
when I tell people that at one time, Nicolas Cage was mentioned in the same breath with Robert De Niro, Marlon Brando.
Oh yeah,
James Dean, and people look at me like I'm crazy. I said, yeah, trust me, he was. He was at one time. He was like the heir apparent to the throne of America's greatest living actor, like Johnny Depp.
Right,
Johnny Depp. At one time, I tell people, before the Pirates thing, forget about it. They were calling him the next James Dean.
Yeah, I mean, you go back and you watch some of Depp's movies or Cage's movies. Like with Cage, I think probably the best one I can think of off the top of my head is Adaptation.
Bingo.
He was brilliant in that movie. And then Depp, he had a bunch of other stuff going on. He did The Ninth Gate was really good. Which I thought he had a really strong performance in that, which is one of those movies that's kind of been forgotten to time. But you did a really good job in that flick.
Oh man, that's a phenomenal movie. I always recommend that to people, and I'm surprised that a lot of people have never heard of that movie.
Yeah. I wonder how much of it has to do with just because that was the period of time when Johnny Depp wasn't really making a whole lot of noise. And because there was this period of time, it was like a good 5-10 year period where people forgot Johnny Depp even existed.
Yeah, and that's when he made this movie. Yeah,
right. Yeah, and also I wonder how much of it also has to do with the fact that it was Roman Polanski directing it. Because this was after the whole underage thing with the whole sexual assault thing. I can't remember exactly what the details are, but
good point. Yeah, you're right. Good point.
So I'm not sure how soon after this happened, but it may have been fresh enough that the studio kind of pushed this out under the radar.
And I think another reason why this movie, Nick Fury, really got pushed off to the side and everything like that, because I believe that after he did this, that's when Hasselhoff went, and that's when he did the show that he really became famous for, which was, of course, the Baywatch.
Baywatch, I think, came out before this.
Really?
Yeah, Baywatch was in '89.
Yep, you're right. I'm looking at it now. Yeah, Baywatch was in '89. But that was the show that most people, when you talk about David Hasselhoff, nobody ever mentions Nick Fury. They either say Baywatch or Knight Rider. That's it. They don't know him for anything else. Which to me, like I said, is a shame, because this is a movie that does not deserve to be forgotten, especially not by Marvel fans. If you want to see a movie that is one of the best pre-MCU movies that Marvel made, this is right up there with Doctor Strange, which we've already talked about, and which I also heartily endorse, and I tell people that they should see. It's not as bad as you think it is. Nick Fury is right up there with it. I would definitely tell people to watch the both of them. If you want to see superior examples of what Marvel was doing, this, of course, the Incredible Hulk TV series, this was stuff that kind of, to me, laid the foundation for what we have now.
Yeah, the tone is very similar. Even the stories are kind of similar. They just didn't have the budgets really or the technology to really push them to what they could have been. But if you updated like Doctor Strange or Nick Fury, and you took those scripts, you took those style of performances, and you put them in a MCU movie, nobody would know the difference.
Oh, no, absolutely not. Yeah, because like you said, the stories are solid. The story here in Nick Fury is, again, no complaint with the story. It's solid from start to finish.
When you think about it, in some ways, it's not that different from some of the other plots you would see in an MCU movie. You think about the first Captain America movie, where it's all about the Red Skull with like this ultimate super weapon, or even Winter Soldier, right? It's still basically Alexander Pierce with this ultimate super weapon.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other stuff in there too, but the bare bones of the plot are pretty much not all that dissimilar.
This is it's something that you would see in a James Bond movie, or even in a Nick Fury comic book, everything, and it translates very well. And it translates very well because, like I said, I think because of we have those wonderful performances from the cast who played it straight, and even with the lack of a budget, which to me shows how actors can step up and they can cover. They can transcend the limit of what the budget is that they have to work with.
In fact, now that I think about it, the plot of this movie, it's basically Mission Impossible 2.
Oh, yeah, that was the one with the Chimera virus.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, you know something? You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Almost exact same plot. It's not some ridiculously out there story that would never work in an MCU film.
Oh, no. Like you said, you know what? If they did take this script and did it with, say, Samuel L. Jackson, which it kind of surprises me that we have not yet got a solo Nick Fury movie. Because I was always under the impression that Samuel L. Jackson had it in his contract that somewhere down the line he was going to get a solo Nick Fury movie. But if he was going to do one, he could do worse than to take this script and just do this one over again, just do a remake of this.
Right. In fact, I believe because the first time he appeared in Iron Man, that was just a cameo. He wasn't under contract for that or anything. But after that movie was successful, then they gave him like the biggest series contract in Hollywood history. And he was contracted something for like 9 or 10 films or some ridiculously high number at the time.
Yeah, 10 films.
And I don't know if there was ever an idea that there would definitely be a Nick Fury movie, But I am kind of surprised that we haven't gotten one as well. But I think we might end up getting. There's been rumors and there's been talk that there might be something on Disney Plus.
Yeah. Well, I've heard, you know what? You've heard so many rumors about Disney Plus because I've heard that it's supposed to be She-Hulk, Moon Knight.
She-Hulk and Moon Knight are confirmed.
Okay,
those are definitely confirmed.
Because I know that the Vision and Wanda, that was confirmed. The Falcon and Winter Soldier, that's confirmed.
Mm-hmm.
I know I know we're definitely getting those two.
Yeah,
and me, I have a sneaking suspicion that we are going to see rebooted versions of Daredevil and Luke Cage and Jessica Jones.
I think they have to wait a little bit before they can do that because I think there's a contract issue with Netflix. So
there is. Yeah, they have to wait. I think they have to wait like another 2 years or something like that.
Right, something like that.
Yeah, and then when that's done, because I think that we're going to see rebooted versions of those shows.
Well, hopefully we get those. Hopefully we get those same actors coming back.
Well, listen, if you don't have the guy, what was his name? Charlie Cox?
Charlie Cox, yeah.
Yeah, if you don't get him back to play Daredevil, then I'm not watching it.
You got to have Charlie Cox back as Daredevil. You got to have Vincent D'Onofrio back as the Kingpin.
Yeah, definitely.
Those two are non-negotiable.
If you don't have those two back, I ain't watching. Right. I'm sorry.
And as for the others,
that guy, John Barenthal, he played his ass.
Yeah, he was perfect. And the others, John Barenthal as the Punisher, Kristen Ritter as Jessica Jones, Mike Coulter as Luke Cage, Simone Missick as Misty Knight, and Jessica, I'm blanking on her name, but the actress who played Colleen Wing. Bring all those ones are preferable to bring them back as well. And then preferable to bring them back. Like I wouldn't. It would suck if we had to lose them, but I wouldn't. It wouldn't be like a total deal breaker like it would be with Cox and D'Onofrio. I think.
Yeah. I mean, listen. I'm
and
willing
then Finn
to go.
Jones, we don't really care about Finn Jones. You can.
No. Well, you know what? He should have never been cast in the first place. I don't blame him for the failure of Iron Fist. I blame whoever was in charge of casting, because what you should have did, if you have a TV show and your main character is a master martial artist, then that's who you hire to play the character. You go out and find yourself a master martial artist.
Right.
And you teach him how to act, hopefully. You don't get an actor and then try to teach him martial arts.
Yeah.
Because
although I will say that Jones did do pretty well when he appeared in the second season of Luke Cage.
Which I still have yet to watch, believe it or not.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he was much better in season 2 of Luke Cage and season 2 of Iron Fist. He was much better, but the best was when he appeared in Luke Cage.
I haven't seen season 2 of Luke Cage yet. I haven't watched the last season of Jessica Jones. I haven't seen the Defenders yet. That's how far behind I am on everything.
Have you seen the Punisher stuff?
I saw the first season.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Which I watched it because of John Bernthal, because I'd seen him like in other stuff, and anything I've seen him in, I've always liked him. I watched him back when he was on The Walking Dead.
Right. Yeah, I remember him from that as well.
Yeah, I think that's where I first, and he's been in like some movies and stuff like that. But he's like one of those actors I look forward to seeing him because he's always good. And I don't think that I would have watched The Punisher because I really don't care that much for The Punisher.
That's right. You don't really like the character.
Yeah, because I don't think he is much of a character.
No, he's not.
But I will say this: in the Netflix series, they handle him the way that he should be handled, because I never liked the Punisher in the comic book because when he was by himself, okay, he was going around capping bad guys in the head and, doing Punisher shit. But when you team him up with Captain America or Daredevil, so now all of a sudden he's using rubber bullets.
Yeah.
He's tasing people, he's not brave. Listen, you can't have it both ways. Either the guy is, he's a goody-goody or he's a ruthless killer. He can't, you can't have him when he's with Captain America. And then Captain America, he says, well, if you're going to team up with me, you got to use rubber bullets. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
But the Netflix show, they handle him the way that he should be handled. So, yeah.
Well, the Netflix show gives him a lot more dimension because the comics, more than anything else, Frank Castle is not really a character in the comics. He's just more of a force of nature. Kind of like how we talked about with the Joker. He's not really a character. He's just more of a force of nature.
Yeah.
It's more about, in some ways it's at least the Ennis stuff, it's more social commentary than anything else. But you can't really have a TV show like that. A character like that doesn't work in a TV show. You got to have someone that you can root for, and so they had to give the Punisher more depth, and they did a pretty good job of making it a kind of commentary on PTSD, I thought. And it worked really well that way, and it gave Frank a whole lot of dimension that he doesn't really have in the comics. All right, now what about the supporting cast in this film, Nick Fury? What are some of your thoughts on the other? Because we talked about the Hoff, we talked about Lisa Rinna and Sandra Hess, but what about some of the other characters?
Oh, let me see. The guy. Oh, Ron Canada, who played Gabe Jones. He really doesn't have much to do in this, but apparently, unlike his comic book counterpart, he's more of the technical guy. He's like Q.
Right. Well, it says here that his character was combined with Sidney Levine.
Right, who was known as the Gaffer.
Right.
And he was the guy that came. In other words, he was Q. He came with all kinds of gadgets, for Nick Fury and stuff like that. He created the LMDs and all that kind of stuff. So So in this incarnation, Gabe Jones, that's who he is. Which works for me.
Right, and Ron Canada, he's one of those actors who's been in so many different things, and he's always entertaining to watch. He always does a good job. Like he was the butler in Wedding Crashers, who was probably the funniest character in the movie.
Okay, I've never seen that, but I'll take your word for it.
Oh, it was a pretty good movie. I mean, it's a Owen Wilson, Vince Vaughn comedy, but it's got some good moments, and I'll watch anything that has Christopher Walken.
Oh, okay. But I like how Ron Canada, which just goes to show you that an actor really doesn't have to do much to stand out. But every time he talks to Nick Fury, he always calls him Nicholas.
Yeah, yeah.
And he gives it kind of like a resonance as if he's talking to royalty almost.
Right.
When he said, just the way he says his name, he says, "Oh, Nicholas," and he's got this resonance to the voice, which just doing that little bit makes his character stands out from everybody else. It's a little thing, but just goes to show you if an actor knows what he's doing, he can make his character stand out just by that little thing that he does. But I like how he doesn't call him Nick like everybody else. He refers to him as Nicholas.
Yeah.
It's cute.
Gary Chalk as Dum Dum Dugan.
Yeah, he's good. Well, listen, we've already seen the perfect Dum Dum Dugan, the guy that was in the movie. But this guy, like I said, for this incarnation, he works good. Apparently in this one, Dum Dum, he's like some kind of assistant director or something like that, because he's running around in a suit and tie and he's giving orders. And
I was kind of disappointed when they said he was Dugan. I'm like, that's Dum Dum Dugan? What? Because I didn't know much about S.h.i.e.L.D., but I knew Dum Dum Dugan because you can't miss him with the mustache and the bowler hat. I mean, at least give him a mustache.
Yeah, they don't. And as a matter of fact, I don't believe he actually calls him Dum Dum in this movie. He calls him by his full name, Timothy Aloysius.
Yeah, he calls him Timothy Aloysius Dugan, and then he just calls him Dugan after that.
Yeah, Dugan. Yeah, he never calls him Dum Dum, which is okay. Well, but again, you got to go with this. I mean, this incarnation of the thing. The guy who played Arnim Zola, he didn't have much to do, but I liked him.
Yeah, he was okay. I mean, it's hard because, like with Dugan. It's tough because you've also now got the memory of, what's his name? God, the guy who plays him in First Avenger.
Oh, yeah.
Toby Jones, I think it's Toby Jones.
Yeah, Toby Jones, right? Yeah, Toby Jones. That's who it is.
Who's amazing.
Yeah.
So it's tough when you're having that kind of comparison.
Yeah, you have to kind of well, you know what? I used Earth 1, Earth 2 theory whenever I watch movies that are not MCU. I say, okay, well, those take place on Earth 2. Everything, all the other, the Incredible Hulk TV series and all that kind of stuff, that takes place on Earth 1. Right. Speaking of Earth 1 and Earth 2, I have to say that it was a brilliant notion, and people listening to this are getting pissed off about us because we keep getting away from Nick Fury, but I can't help it. I thought it was brilliant the way in Crisis, how they tied in that all of the other DC TV shows or whatever, they all existed.
Yeah. That was actually an idea that Grant Morrison and Mark Waid had way back in the day when they created Hypertime. Because their whole idea was that it's all real. All of it is real. All the TV shows, all the movies, all the comic books, they all exist in this multi-time. And that's kind of the idea they came up with. And at the time, DC editors said, no, that's bullshit. We're not using it. And now the TV shows are doing just that.
Yeah, because when they had that first scene with Alexander Knox.
Yeah. Robert Wolf.
And he was on Earth 97 or 96, which, of course, was the year that the Batman movie came out.
So that would have been 89 then.
Yeah, 89. And then we see Burt Ward. He's on Earth 66, which, of course, is when the Batman was.
But you know what? I got to say, my favorite cameo, bar none, was Tom Ellis on Earth 666 as Lucifer.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You know what? I never watched the show, but everybody I know said that was their favorite.
Yeah. Oh, you got to check out the show. It's so much fun. It's not it's nowhere near as, it's not like good, or it's not, well, it's entertaining. It's not like amazingly good or anything like that. And like the whole some of the whole idea of him working with the police force is a little bit, stretches credulity a little bit, but it's worth it just for watching him and D.B. Woodside and the actress who plays Maze, whose name I'm blanking on right now. It's worth it just for those three alone.
But as I've been telling people, and I said, and I don't think that Crisis is really getting as much credit as it should, because it's doing the exact same thing that the Avengers movie did. Right. The Endgame. This is in every way the equal of what they did, because they did it in the same way that the MCU did. They took years to build up to this. Yeah. And they earned it. And they're going through the whole multiverse. And I really appreciate the fact that they are bringing all these actors and all these different TV shows. The only one they left out was, and I'm wondering if it had something to do because of the contract. I'm pretty sure it's got something to do with copyrights or contracts, something like that. They didn't bring in the Linda Carter Wonder Woman, Yeah,
I was kind of surprised that they didn't, because she'd appeared on Supergirl already. So you'd think
right, right. So I was looking for a clip of, because they did have a clip from the original Flash show.
Right. They also had a clip from Titans.
Yeah, from Titans, yeah. I was looking for Doom Patrol. I said, well, why didn't they have Doom Patrol as well?
I think part of it is because when they were filming Crisis, Titans was probably also being filmed at the same time, so they could very easily work that in. Whereas Doom Patrol is not in production right now. Yeah. Same thing with Swamp Thing, because Swamp Thing production was canceled. So I think that's probably why. So instead, they just said, "All right, you know what? We'll throw in Titans, and since all those are in the same universe anyway, it gives the feel to everybody."
Right, and I guess you can just say in your own head, well, you know what? I'm sure that one of those Earths that got wiped out is, Wonder Woman Earth, and
right. Well, also, I don't think they didn't have a Gotham reference either, did they? The TV show, Gotham.
No, they didn't. Yeah, nope, they did not. I was looking for that as well.
So I wonder if that one I'm pretty sure would be a rights thing. I'm pretty sure that would be a rights issue with Gotham.
Yeah, because Gotham was on Fox.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And Lucifer is now owned by Netflix, so that was probably easier to swing because Netflix and CW, they've got a good partnership because all the CW shows, they go on Netflix like the day after the season ends.
Right, the day after the show, which is usually how I watch it anyway. Like, I don't watch anything when it's coming on like week by week.
Yeah.
But what I do is that I wait until the season is over. Yeah, like you said, like the next day or something like that. They've got the whole season that's up there. Mm-hmm. So then that's what I do. Then I say, okay, well, I'm going to binge watch the season and watch it then. So that's how I've been keeping up with it.
I was going to just at least watch all the shows leading up to Crisis this time, but I'd only really gotten to Flash, and I figured that was the most important since the Crisis stuff was basically spinning out of Flash to begin with.
But you know something? Let me say this, that I was surprised, even though, like, I've never seen Batwoman, for instance, and I haven't, and Legends of Tomorrow, I haven't kept up with that, but I found that I got into this whole Crisis thing very easily.
Yeah, I've seen I saw the Batwoman pilot, but that's all I've really seen of it so far. Legends hasn't had any new episodes yet. Their new season doesn't start until after Crisis.
Right.
So if you saw last season of Legends, then you're all caught up on that.
No, I didn't see last season, but I'm saying that I really didn't have a problem with, I was surprised at how accessible it was. In other words, like, I don't think that anybody, because I know I've had people that have asked me, well, I haven't watched Arrow since season whatever, and I'm scared I'm going to be lost. So I said, no, you know what? Don't worry about it. You're not going to get lost.
Well, even with how much Flash had led up to it, I think you could have still watched Crisis without watching any of Flash this season.
Yeah. And they make enough references to things that happened in the past so that you could say, okay, you could fill in the gaps.
Right. The only thing that I didn't really get was the stuff with Lena Luthor and also the black chick who has I don't know, I guess she's Jimmy Olsen's sister or something like that. Because she has the Guardian shield.
Oh yeah.
Those are the only, because I haven't seen any of Supergirl this season, so those things were the only things I didn't really know much about. But they gave me enough to where, well, in the case of the new Guardian or whatever her name is, it didn't really matter too much.
Yeah,
because it's just that one. It's basically just that one scene. The Lena stuff, they had done a decent job of kind of filling in the gaps, so I wasn't that lost with that.
And like I said earlier, that is one of the things I love about, now technology, and that nothing is lost. So that, you know what, you can always go on Netflix and go back and watch Supergirl or watch whatever and say, okay, well, I miss who this is and who that is. And you can go back and watch some episodes and get caught up and say, okay, now I know who this is.
Right.
Yeah. So it's really not a thing whereas, you will be totally lost. Or you know what? You can just go on Wikipedia the character and see who,
Yeah.
Google it. And so, so it really wasn't, and we should probably save this when we do. It just hit me that we said we was going to do a Crisis episode, so we better hold on. We better save this.
All right.
But you people listen, I don't want to hear nothing out of y'all guys about this. Y'all got a whole lot in this episode. I don't care what you say. You got a whole lot. I wish I was listening to this.
All right. So the last two characters I wanted to touch on were first you had Strucker come out at the end. Campbell Lane plays him, apparently.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Like, I know he's just in one scene, so it doesn't really matter, but that guy it didn't feel like Strucker to me. It didn't feel like, it looked kind of cheesy with the little bow tie and everything.
Well, he looked like a dried up old man. Instead of, you know who it should have been? It should have been Christopher Lee.
Oh, that would have been amazing.
Yeah, that's who, when we finally see him in all his glory and he's been resurrected, that should have been somebody like Christopher Lee with that kind of status.
Although,
so we could say,
if they if they had then done a TV show and you had Christopher Lee acting up against the Hoff, it would not have looked too good for Hasselhoff.
But what I'm saying is that when we finally see Baron Strucker. Now, this is the guy, mind you, that took Nick Fury's eye because he had a scene in there that says, yeah, well, he took my eye, and, they've been mortal enemies all of these times, for all of these years and whatever. And when we finally see him resurrected, we should have a sense of, oh, shit, Nick Fury's going to be in trouble now. But when we see this guy, it's like, oh, please. Him and his horny daughter. Yeah. Really?
Yeah. Creeping on her bow tie wearing decrepit old dad.
Yeah, exactly. He looks like a decrepit old man. He doesn't look like a towering figure of evil that he should be. We should have the feeling that, okay, well, Nick Fury is really in trouble now because this guy's back.
No, he's the Crypt Keeper's grandfather.
Yeah, we don't get that. So it's kind of like a letdown. I understand this is just the lead into what they hope was going to be the series, but to my mind, if I had been directing it, I would have played the scene as if we were never going to get a series. But you should have a feeling of dread that this guy came back.
Right. Absolutely.
It shouldn't have been left at that, or I don't. Yeah, because I don't know. Yeah, he just looked like some decrepit old man. He didn't look like a towering mastermind of evil that the world fears, which is what he should have been.
And then the other guy I wanted to mention was, well, there's also Kate Neville, who's played by Tracy Waterhouse, and she's good. There's nothing really too special about her one way or the other, but she does a decent job. But the character I really, really kind of liked in this is Neil Roberts as Pierce.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was a lot of fun to watch.
Well, he's the young, eager guy that, wants to show. As a matter of fact, know who his character actually was? Clay Quartermain.
Oh, really?
Well, I'm talking about the way that his character was eager to show what he could do, and he was like in kind of in awe of Nick Fury and everything like that. Well, in the comic books, that's kind of like how Clay was, Clay Quartermain.
Because I do remember when this came out, people on message boards they were praising Neil Roberts, and they were saying, "Oh, he's perfect as Pierce." But I didn't really know much about Pierce in the comics, so didn't really have any sort of frame of reference.
But it's good. But it's good to have a character like that, because you need to have a character like that people can explain stuff to, and thereby explain us to the audience. Right. It's like when me and my wife would, we like to listen to radio programs in the car, when we're running our errands, and we listen to old time radio shows, and. My wife was asking me one day, says, oh, well, how come, the detectives, they always have, like a girlfriend or, somebody that, but they're not really a girlfriend, they're just there. I said, oh, that's somebody that the hero can explain things to.
Yeah. It's a it's a point of view character so that the audience can have stuff spelled out for them.
Yeah, I said, that's all it is. And that's what Alexander Pierce is, but he's a useful point of view character because when we first meet him, Nick Fury beats him up, but then he introduces himself and he says, I've been dreaming of this. You're a legend, everything like that. Then they have the little comedy bit that's on the elevator. Yeah. So we get like nice little humorous moments thanks to Pierce.
Now, I'm not sure. Do you know much about Pierce in the comics? Because I don't think he was really in the Steranko run. I think he came later.
No, he wasn't in the Steranko run. He came later on.
Okay. So what do you know much about him? I'm not sure how familiar you are with the later stuff.
Nah, I'm not all that familiar with him. Okay. Like I said, in this movie, most of his characteristics really came from the Clay Quartermain character in the comic books. But since Clay wasn't around in the movie.
Now remember we were talking about the differences between the MCU interpretations of these characters. I think probably the biggest one is Pierce because he's a completely different character in The Winter Soldier when he's played by Robert Redford.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely no comparison. I mean, they're two different characters. I think that in the comic books he does end up being a bad guy.
No, I think he was an undercover S.h.i.e.L.D. agent for working in Hydra, but I think he was working for S.h.i.e.L.D. the whole time.
Okay, back because I seem to remember dimly somewhere. I think it was in a graphic novel. He gets turned into a cyborg or something like that.
Yeah, there was something like that. It was in one of the S.h.i.e.l.d. Collections. I vaguely have some memory of reading something like that, about a year or two ago.
I think, what was his name? The guy, what's the artist's name? He did the New Mutants, Bill Sienkiewicz.
Bill Sienkiewicz?
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was one of those S.h.i.e.l.D. graphic, because he did a couple of S.h.i.e.L.D. graphic novels.
Right. Yeah, there was one.
Elektra.
Oh, Elektra. He did Elektra, but that was. I think that was a different character. That was. What's his name? The guy that appeared in Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D.
Okay.
He turned out to be. He was Hydra in the TV series.
Okay. All right.
But it's just kind of funny to watch these, looking back on this movie after seeing Redford play Pierce as this like hardcore Hydra agent, and then go back and watching him played as like this rookie British agent working for S.h.i.e.L.D. It was just kind of a funny difference between them.
I know, it was kind of like a jarring thing. Yeah, and this. Wait a minute. So you mean to say that he grew up in the Robert Redford and took over S.h.i.e.L.D.? Oh man, that's such a great movie.
But yeah, I think we could. Well, what little we talked about this movie, I think we pretty much.
We got some in, but we got sidetracked by all the stuff. But I don't think anybody will mind.
Yeah. All right.
Because at least it was meaningful diversions and digressions.
Okay, so now next movie.
Okay, it's your turn. Make it good.
I am going to make it good. What is the one superhero that you hate the most?
Oh, Deadpool.
That's what we're going to watch next. And I'll tell you why. It's not because I want to piss you off, but it's because that movie is almost universally beloved. But you, as someone who doesn't like Deadpool, I think it'd be interesting to have some other perspective on it.
Hey, know what? It's not even that I hate Deadpool. It's just that I don't get him. I don't understand why the character is supposed to be so funny. And as a matter of fact, I've seen the movie twice, the first one, and I just recently watched the sequel.
Okay.
I said, well, let me watch it. I was home. It came on TV. I didn't have anything to do. I had a couple of hours to kill. I said, well, let me watch it, And let me put it this way. I laugh at the second one.
Oh, okay.
For reasons that had nothing to do with Deadpool, but I laughed at the second one. But the first one, it's not that I hate the character. It's just that I don't get him. But I am more willing to watch it again and come back and discuss it with you, my friend.
All right, sounds good. So next episode, we're going to be watching Deadpool. Any final thoughts? Anything you got coming out soon?
Hopefully this month I should be having, matter of fact, after I get finished with you, I got to contact Tommy Hancock and see if the Dylan annual for the official title is Dylan Annual Collection 2019 will be coming out. He told me, excuse me, folks. He told me last month it was going to be coming out this month because since all the stories that are in that volume, they're all Dylan stories and they're all Christmas stories.
Oh, okay.
So that's why he said he was going to hold it for this month to come out. So I have to contact him and find out exactly. So be on the lookout for that. If you haven't got your copy of Dylan the Odd Jobs yet, please go ahead and get yourself a copy of that one. You either paperback or Kindle. What else can I plug while I have the floor? Of course, you can always go to the Ferguson Theater where I have my movie reviews up, including a review of this movie, Nick Fury, Agent of S.h.i.e.L.D. You can either go to the site, you can go to our Facebook group, Superhero Cinephiles. I'll put a link up there.
Yeah.
And you can see that. What else? There's Ferguson Inc., where it's a whole bunch of other stuff on there that I have. I've got book reviews up there. I've got interviews with various writers, including my esteemed co-host. What else? Yeah, that's about it. Hopefully next year, I just did a story for Airship 27, the 4th volume of Bass Reeves' Frontier Marshal.
Okay.
So that should be coming out, because Ron puts them out usually pretty quick. Once he has all the stories, they come out pretty quick. So yeah. So that should be out pretty soon. And I'll keep y'all folks apprised or whatever, and I'm on Facebook, and, you can keep abreast of what I'm doing there. I'm pretty vocal about letting people know what I'm doing. I'm not shy, believe me.
Yeah. On my side, I don't really have anything. I got a new book coming out, but it's not out yet, so I'm not ready to announce it because it depends on how long it takes to get it edited and everything. Hopefully by next episode, I'll have a better idea, or it'll already be out. I think this might actually end up being our last episode of the year when I'm looking at the calendar.
Yeah, because, today's the 14th, and this is going to be out.
This is going to be coming out on the 16th. So, I don't know. I guess we could probably get if you're able to. Next week's Christmas, so I'm not sure if you'd be able to record or anything. So, we might be able to get another one out before the end of the year. If we go
Well, I'm looking at my calendar now. Christmas is Wednesday on the 25th. If you want to record on the 27th, which is a Friday, and then
I could do that. I could do that.
Yeah. Okay, well, we could Deadpool episode then on the 27th of December.
All right, that works out perfectly. So we'll save the holiday greetings and everything for that episode. All right. Other than that, though, the other thing is my other podcast, Japan on Film. Been having some guest hosts coming on lately. We just had the latest episode where we talk about The Ring, both the original and the remake. And the next episode, which will be coming out next week, is going to be about 13 Assassins. And I just recorded...
Ooh.
Yeah, so that was a fun episode to do. And then I just recorded another episode about Perfect Blue, and that one will be dropping in January. So you got it over to japanonfilm.com, and you can check all those out. And yeah, it's been interesting because we had you come on to talk about Magnificent Seven Samurai, so it's been a lot of fun to have some other voices besides just mine talking about these movies.
Yeah, I really want to listen to that one. I haven't heard the one about The Ring yet. I really want to listen because I've never seen that movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and believe it or not, I've got the damn thing on DVD, but I've never seen the movie. So I haven't. So when I saw you did an episode about that, I said, "Oh shit!" I said, "I really want to listen to that. Maybe I'll listen to that. That'll make me want to see the movie because it was a big deal at one time. The Ring.
Yeah, it was huge. It started the whole trend of America remaking Japanese horror, not just Japanese, but Asian horror movies in general.
Yeah, Asian horror movies. Yeah.
And we
started a whole trend.
And we still got to get you to come back on at some point to talk about the Japanese remake of Unforgiven.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't seen that yet. You gave me a link to it or something like that, or you told me the name of it?
Yeah. We talked about it when we were talking about when we did the Seven Samurai episode. So
right.
I'll send you an email and we'll try and see if we can get you a copy of that.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Cool.
All right.
Okay.
All right, so that's all for us. Head on over to Superhero Cinephiles on Facebook. We got the Facebook page, Facebook group. Join in the conversation. We've also got a Patreon page, and we've got our first patron, who's Lucas Garrett, one of the friends of the show, who's also part of...
Lucas is such a terrific guy. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you, folks, this guy... When I say he's one of the best friends that I've never met, he's like Perry and a bunch of other people that he's a person that when he supports you 100%.
Yeah, so he's our first supporter so far. So join in if you go to patreon.com/supercinemapod, and the link's also on our website. You can donate for as little, whatever you want, as little as $1 a month. Every little bit you help toss in, helps us to continue to pay for the hosting for the website and the show, and for the software that I need to record the show.
You can do without that Starbucks for one day.
Yeah. And it's cheaper than a cup of Starbucks coffee, so.
Yeah.
So, come on over, join in the conversation, superherocinephiles.com, and we will see you next time.
Okay. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Perry.
Thank you,
Good
Derek.
night. God bless.